On this Tuesday, the NBA postseason officially begins. Play-in tournament games. On Saturday, though, the actual NBA playoffs get underway. DRS, a quadruple header on Saturday with the 4 playoff series, 2 on each side, Eastern, Western conferences that we have set right now. Our 3-6 splits, our 4-5 matchups as well. Let's start in the Western Conference. Our 3 versus 6. The Los Angeles Lakers, who will have home floor advantage in the best-of-7 set against the Minnesota Timberwolves, the 6th seed around the Western Conference. Luka Doncic, LeBron James in the Los Angeles Lakers. That should be a recipe for playoff success. The Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that reached the Western Conference Finals a season ago and was booked as the series outright favorite before Luka Doncic had other ideas playing for the Dallas Mavericks. This time around, it's LA, booked now nearly as a $2 favorite to win this series outright. We expect it to go the distance to get to 7 games. Minnesota is getting a game and a half as the series underdog in that series spread. Your initial thought, DRS, on this series between the Lakers and the T-Wolves is what?
2 things. I do think the Lakers are the better basketball team, and they're a veteran team here, Luka Doncic and LeBron James, which means you're going to get extra rest time, which is always a big factor for me, and I love that. Also understand this. Home court advantage makes a big difference no matter where you play. Yeah. So you're going to take a look at the Lakers being home. They make sense. So I just told you, the Lakers, I think, win the series. I think I like the matchup here between the 2 teams in its home court, but you know what I don't like? Laying a minus 196 price on the Lakers to actually win this series. So it's sort of like, yeah, we like them, like a high, like let's just say you have a football game, right? 13.5 point spread. Yeah, I like the team to win the game. I don't know if they can cover the 13.5. That's the feeling that I have, because if the expectations are we have a longer series and I get close to a 2-to-1 price there that I have to lay, I'm like, you know what? I don't know about that, because I don't think the Lakers win this series, Ben, in 5 games, which means 6 plus. Right. I don't know if I want to lay the minus 196, even if I do think the Lakers do win this series. LeBron rested, Luka rested, very good home court advantage, all adds up. I just don't like the price that I'm going to have to lay for the Lakers to win the series at close to a 2-to-1.
I think you could look at then the series spread. If your prediction is Lakers in 6, it's minus 1.5 at plus 112. That also does give you some wiggle room. The Lakers could be even more dominant and impressive than perhaps we expect. There are so many different ways to bet these playoff series. I love this time of year because game by game, night by night, we see drastic swings based on one result. I expect the Lakers to win this series. I think it's Lakers in 6, despite it going to 7 games is the shortest price at plus 210. For it to be ended in 5 or 6, not all that much different, just 10 cents at plus 220. DRS, the Timberwolves rolling. They won 8 of their last 9 to earn the 6th seed. They were 32-29 at the end of February. In March and halfway through April, 17-4. But again, this is why you get Luka Doncic for these moments. And if you're going to pair LeBron and Luka, I have a hard time thinking that team is going to lose, at least in the opening round of the postseason. The correct score prices, by the way, the most likely outcome is the Lakers to end this early, as the odds makers see it, at plus 360. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. NBA is 2-3-2, 2-2-1-1-1.
I think it's 2-2. Yeah, the finals used to be the 2-3-2, but I don't think do they do that? Still do that in the NBA Finals? I'm not even sure at this point. Yeah, so yeah,
2-2-1-1-1. Yeah, and thus that home floor advantage kind of baked into those prices. DRS for LA to win it in LA plus 360 and 5, for LA to win it in LA but go the distance plus 390 and 7.
And that's the way you should look at it optimistically. Like, well, I don't know if it's going to be a long series, but 4-1 sounds quick. But if the Lakers do have that lead and the game 5's at home, they'll look to close that one out. A little bit harder, as we know, to close it out on the road, let's just say, per se, in game number 6. And then 7 at home, the plus 390 price. So those price points do make sense. There is some fun bets, too, on the FanDuel Sportsbook, like series total made 3s there. Anthony Edwards at a plus 110 price. But how about like a Dante DiVincenzo with a 14-1? Like, if you think it's going to be an extended series and maybe a higher scoring series, you just want the guy that's shooting unlimited 3-point shots here, and that's what his game is. Because Dante DiVincenzo with the Knicks, when it was like, hey, he's one of our only outlets here, he shot a ton of 3-point shots in the playoffs. Maybe something sneaky like that to have fun with.
Luka Doncic is the favorite to score the most points in this series at plus 125. Anthony Edwards' second best number. The T-Wolves needed to win their final 3 games to avoid the play-in tournament, be the 6th seed. Anthony Edwards scored 43 plus in 2 of those 3. Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. The postseason in the association starts on this Tuesday. Play-in tournament games, but we already know 4 playoff series set in stone, 2 in East Conference. We started in the Western Conference with our 3-6 matchup between the Lakers and the Timberwolves. A little bit of line movement there, by the way, from the series outright price from where it began earlier in the week, favoring the Lakers. A little bit of line movement, DRS, and our other Western Conference set for the opening round. That would be the 4-5 matchup. The Denver Nuggets, home floor advantage at altitude against the LA Clippers. The line movement here, though, not back in the favorites, working to the underdog. We are approaching a pick'em price, if you will, for that series outright number. Denver, an ever so slight favorite at minus 120. LA plus 102. The Clippers, one of, if not the hottest teams entering the postseason. Winners of 8 straight, 18 of their last 21. Donnie, good enough for me to back that Los Angeles price yesterday at plus 116 to win this series outright. It's now plus 102. What do you make of the market movement? Who wins this opening round set in the 4-5 matchup out west?
I do want to take the Clippers here. Still plus money price at plus 102, but the word I love to use here is trustability, Ben. I do trust the Denver Nuggets in elevation to put forward a good effort here, even if they did fire their head coach before the playoffs have started here. The one thing that you're just so snake-bitten by the Clippers, it's typically they don't show up to the playoffs healthy. But then if they get to the playoffs and they're healthy, quickly, gets back to knees and ankles and protocols, and away go the Clippers. Because if you do line these teams up man by man in that starting 5, I like the Clippers starting 5 better. And that does include Nikola Jokic on one of the sides, who's maybe the best player in the NBA. But I don't know if I can take the Clippers because I can't trust the Clippers yet. And this is coming from a guy the past couple weeks like, hey, Donnie, give me your long shot. Give me the team that can wreak some havoc there once they get into the playoffs. It's always been the Clippers if they're healthy, and they are healthy. But there's still something from me that says, man, I don't know if I can dive in and take that price point right around a plus 100 for them to win the series. Would I be shocked if they won it? Absolutely not. But if I said, Donnie, free pick, free play in this one, Nuggets minus 120, plus 102 Clippers, it's going to be the Clippers for me. It will be. I just don't have a ton of confidence on it. That's all.
You look at the numbers, DRS. The Nuggets are the series outright favorite, but they are the ones getting the game and a half as that series spread underdog. Hefty price at minus 210. Shortest in terms of series total score, that would be the amount of games that we see both Game 6 and Game 7 at a plus 200 number. We expect this to get to at least 6 games. That's what the odds makers believe. And although I am backing the underdog, the Clips to win this series outright as the 5 seed without that home court advantage, DRS, I don't think it happens in 4 or 5 games. I do believe this series has the chance to go the distance. Again, the Clippers, led by Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and Ivica Zubac and Big Will Norm Powell, playing some great basketball down the stretch. DRS, they dropped 6 of their first 7 following the All-Star break. They won 18 of their final 21 to earn that 5 seed in the Western Conference. Now, it's been exactly a week for the Nuggets since the shocking dismissal of head coach Michael Malone and the GM as well. Calvin Booth, I believe his name is. And Donnie, in those 3 games for Denver, following the firing of Michael Malone, it's not like the Nuggets were sitting pretty like, it don't really matter. We win these games, whatever. They needed to win those 3 to secure home floor advantage for the opening round of the NBA playoffs. They won all 3. They covered in all 3. The Nuggets have had that small interim bump, if you will, at least to end the regular season, and they still have the best basketball player on planet Earth in Nikola Jokic, and a team that under Michael Malone just 2 years ago had the championship pedigree, winning that Larry O'Brien trophy.
And understand how things happen, like in the real world, which again includes the NBA. Like, this wasn't a decision that was made in the middle of the night by the ownership group and the general manager, regardless of what the players thought. And there is a bounce that you did get because apparently the players are happy. You would have heard right away, like Nikola Jokic taking the money. Michael Malone got fired. You got to be kidding me. Like, I don't even understand what this organization is doing. Then you're wary, like, oh, no, this is going to have a negative effect. But the firing was, wow, I can't believe they did that. But we didn't hear that from inside the locker room for the Nuggets or the feedback from beat writers like, man, this team is in turmoil because the players can't believe Michael Malone, who led them to a championship where they loved, was let go on the doorstep of the NBA playoffs. And you saw them play better down the stretch. And as you pointed out, this wasn't like we're locked into the 5th seed. Let's make this move now. And final 3 games of the season, we'll work things out. Like, no, they were working on the fly to improve their seeding and make sure they didn't drop out of the play-in round to playoff rounds into the play-in round. Yeah. So that's something that I see as a net positive right now, which maybe could have been a net negative just a week and a half ago. So it does have added pressure for the Nuggets. They're still supposed to win. They won a championship a couple years ago. Jokic is still their best player, maybe the best in the NBA. But I do think the Clippers are legitimate in this series. Again, do I trust the Clippers? Yeah. That's the tough part here. But I don't think we're coming into the playoffs with a negative connotation on the Nuggets right now with them firing their head coach. I don't.
The last time the Clips won a playoff series back in 2021. And Donnie, just to further highlight how close the odds makers expect this series to be, when you look at the correct score odds, Denver to win in 7 on their home floor, plus 410. LA to win in 6 on their home floor, plus 410. The number's the same on either side if there was to be the upending of those expected odds. Let's flip our attention now to the Eastern Conference, our 3-6 matchup. The New York Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons in the postseason are in the playoffs for the first time since 2019. The New York Knicks stumbling down the stretch, but still the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Donnie, when we look at this opening round playoff series, we expect it to be quick. The Knicks, a minus 430 outright favorite to win this series in 5. That's the shortest number at plus 190. For the Knicks to do it in 5 is plus 245. By far the shortest number, the only one sub 4-1. My question to you is rather simple. Is it going to be that quick and easy for the Knicks?
I don't think it should be, though, right? Like, we're pricing the Knicks as if it's an automatic victory over the Detroit Pistons. Do I love the Pistons? Not necessarily, but the Knicks have shown us, like, okay, you're playing legitimate competition, have struggled with the upper echelons. They've done well against the middling teams, but I don't want to disrespect Detroit and call them a middling team here. You see that Detroit spread there, plus 2.5, minus 144. That might not be a bad way to go. You steal a game in the Garden. Here we go, 1-1 back to Detroit. You're going to get that cover here. So for me, I'm not betting the Knicks at minus 430. Give me the plus 2.5 games with the Pistons.
We'll continue to talk about it next. Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid, previewing the opening round playoff series in the NBA that we have set. The 3-6, 4-5 matchups in either conference. DRS now in the Eastern Conference. The New York Knicks, the 3 seed, will host the Detroit Pistons, the 6 seed, come Saturday. Again, the odds makers are expecting this to be rather comfortable and easy for the Knickerbockers. Minus 430 to win the series outright. Shortest to do it in 5 games. Plus 190. The Knicks to win it in 5. Plus 245. And a 2.5 game favorite in that series spread. That would mean if New York is going to capture that prize, they either have to sweep Detroit or win it in 5. Donnie, much like you, I don't think it's that easy. Now, I'm not saying the Pistons pull off the outright upset and advance to the Eastern Conference semis, but I do think Detroit can at least get this back to the Motor City for a 6th game. It's the second playoff bet that I have so far. Clippers outright on the series spread, or the series outright number against the Denver Nuggets, and the Detroit Pistons getting 2.5 in the series spread, hoping this just gets to 6. I think the Pistons can provide a little bit of a spark and be a thorn in the side of New York.
Yes, and maybe they can. And also understand this, too. Sometimes you get into the playoffs with a team that's not used to being in the playoffs, at least recently with the Detroit Pistons, that you're playing with house money at this point. You play free out here. There's no stress. You're not like, oh, my goodness, if we don't win this, I'm going to be traded out of town. My head coach is going to be fired. That's not where they're at. And I do think we're going to get some great efforts here. Now, is an interesting way to approach this series. Like you see the plus 340 price. Let me just take a look to see what we have in the series, because what I want to do is see what that plus money number could be. So I'm trying to scroll down. All right, there we go. So plus 245, Ben, opening night here on Saturday night in the Garden, the Pistons. Would you be better off looking at that game and saying, boy, if they come to play in that one and they can steal that one, that's worthwhile for the series itself? Or are you sitting back and saying, instead of betting, let's just say, Ben, the series price, I don't know if they can win game number 1, But why would I bet the 2.5 if I don't think they can win game number 2? They're down 0-2 going back at that point, where that price point probably going to be around that 250, 260 price. That might be an interesting way to bet this, because you're right. The Knicks should be able to handle their business. They're priced appropriately. We're just trying to thread the needle as what's the best one to do, because after an 0-2 start in the series for the Pistons, you're not feeling so good about even getting plus 2.5. Right. But if you take a look at game number 1 and it's like, wow, Knicks by 10 points, 15 points. I don't know if they can win this series. You know the Pistons and that zigzag theory that everybody loves in the NBA playoffs. You got to win game number 2. You can't go back 0-2 into your own building, and maybe that's the time that you take that big plus money swing as opposed to the plus 2.5. Just some food for thought on how this might play out. But for me, and as well as you probably thinking, Detroit's got to get one in New York between games 1 and 2 to actually be a factor in this series.
I would think so, and I think it's a really good idea if you believe that is the thought for this series. As Tom Vecchio laid out yesterday, Detroit +7 or even a money line price on the Pistons in game number 1 on Saturday night. Even if the Pistons lose DRS, but keep it competitive within 7, I'll feel a lot more comfortable about that getting 2.5 games and forcing at least a 6th game in the opening round of the postseason. Yesterday, the Pacers in our 4-5 matchup, having home floor advantage against Giannis and the Bucks, were greater than a $2 odds-on favorite. It's around $2, but now minus 198, slightly below. Again, Donnie, another series here where I think the underdog in the outright number presents a little bit of optimism. Milwaukee, much like LA, that being the Clippers, winners of 8 straight entering the postseason. If I'm just going to say it here, since losing Dame for the remainder of the year and just being led by Giannis once again, it's almost like the Bucks look better.
I'm telling you, there are some interesting factors here because you always have Giannis. He's won a championship. You're going to get time off between games, which, again, helps veteran teams. I'm not saying the Pacers are a young team by any stretch, but I just look at Giannis being 100% every single game where he can play 35-plus minutes there. I do look at that price point. And, again, if you're just led by which side to take, the Pacers, that's a strong favorite at minus 198. Yeah. It is. So it sort of brings your eyes back to the Bucks and how you can make some money. So again, the spread values are interesting to me, plus 1.5 games. Do I think the Bucks can actually win the series? I do. But do I think the Bucks might make it close? Yeah, I do if they lose. So that plus 1.5 does make some sense. Yeah. But if I'm just reading the numbers, that is a Pacers number. But do you want to fall into, now's the time to trust the Bucks because it's Giannis? Or do you let your eyes focus on the Pacers actually have a better starting 5 and over this series, if healthy, should be able to exact some power over the Bucks because that's why they're favored at close to a 2-1 price. But I do find myself leaning towards the Milwaukee Bucks. Sometimes you just can't quit them. Wait, the Bucks and Giannis, I'm getting this much plus money. Sometimes that's where your eyes just go.
It certainly is. Let's talk some play-in tourney action when Hour 3 starts next, which is what starts tonight on a Tuesday. Play-in tournament games. The Magic and the Hawks in Orlando. The Warriors and the Grizzlies in San Francisco. Who wins? Who becomes the 7th seed in either conference playoff standing? That is what we discuss by asking all of you and Fade the Public. I mean, Donnie, maybe it's not just you, my man. When you look at this Fade the Public poll, as I'm seeing it right now, one of our least engaged with Fade the Public polls that I can remember. Fade the Public polls solely focusing on the NBA. Don't get a ton of love. Yesterday's did for who is going to be that NBA championship best bet at the end of the regular season before the postseason begins. Only 65 votes, though, DRS, for basically a money line parlay of our doubleheader of games in play-in tourney action on this Tuesday. At SportsGrid on Twitter, who will win tonight's NBA play-in tournament games? Will it be the Hawks and the Grizzlies, pulling off the upsets, the Warriors and the Hawks, the Grizzlies and the Magic, the Warriors and the Magic? It should be shared. The Dubs a 7-point home favorite, Orlando a 5-point home favorite, so both teams substantially favored. 41.5% of the 65 votes saying it will be the Dubs and the Magic making good on those numbers tonight. Although the Warriors and the Hawks, more people believing in Atlanta, not all that far behind.
No, and let's understand the premise of this poll here tonight. We are excited because the NBA playoffs are starting, but the question is, Are they actually starting tonight? Because you do have the boring Magic that are going up against the Hawks, who are always in the play-in round. Not a lot of NBA fans on either side's right there. Then, as I stated to start the program, you do have a decent game, which is going to take place on the West Coast that nobody will be able to watch outside of the West Coast. Now, also, understand this, because people always say, well, you can't start the games early in the West Coast. Correct me if I'm wrong. Monday Night Football on the West Coast in San Francisco, does that start at 10 p.m. at night because the local fan base? No, it doesn't. It starts at what? 5 o'clock at night. Why isn't this game 5 o'clock at night? We bumped the Magic game up to 6 o'clock, and we're going to have two games that everybody can watch, and I guarantee you we'd have more than 65 votes because people are voting on stuff they're not even going to watch tonight, or should I say not voting on, Ben. How about that?
Yeah, I think it's probably not about just the timing-wise for the second game being in San Francisco. It's what the NBA does throughout the entirety of their season when there is doubleheader action. You have one game in the 7 to 7:30 window, and then you have another game starting after that, 9:30 or 10. Sorry, DRS. We'll look at the box score tomorrow morning, though, and figure out who won between the Dubs and the Grizzlies. Donnie, if you were to pick these games, just your money line parlay, are you back in the favorites? Do you think one of the underdogs can pull off the outright upset? Which way did you actually vote if you did and you did not hold out in the Fade the Public poll?
Yeah, I went Magic and Grizzlies. I think the Magic do win their game, and I think the Grizzlies can hang around. I like the Grizzlies' price point tonight, which I do think makes some sense here. With John Moran, I think he can have a decent game on the road and play within that 7, let's just say 7.5 number. Only 18.5% went that route. And there's no surprise that the Magic and the Warriors, both teams favored by a decent mortgage, both home teams here, and theoretically both better teams, should be the lay of the land at 41.5%. But it was interesting to see the second most votes there coming in on the Hawks and the Warriors, so the Magic getting upset in this game at home. So not a lot of surprises just in the second spot here. I thought might change a little bit, but the public going public and backing the public plays, that doesn't surprise me.
Atlanta, by the way, a much better underdog this season than the previous 2 years in the A. 29 and 22 against the spread. The Hawks won their final 3 games, including outright against Orlando in their regular season finale. The Hawks needed it to make sure the Bulls did not take this spot in the 7-8 game. Orlando did not need it nearly as much. We will preview those play-in tournament games throughout this third and final hour. The NBA postseason officially begins tonight. Play-in tournament action. Our 7-8 matchups in both the Eastern Conference in Orlando. The Magic will host the Hawks in San Francisco. The Warriors will host the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's start, DRS, in Golden State. Inside the Chase Center tonight, the Dubs and the Grizz. Back in 2022, a hotly contested opening round playoff series, or Western Conference semifinals playoff series between these two teams that went the way of the Dubs. It felt like a budding rivalry, not necessarily, but back in a postseason matchup against one another. Of course, Memphis, an interim head coach, they dismissed Taylor Jenkins with just a couple of weeks remaining in the regular season. Golden State did not expect to be in this spot, having to be in the play-in tournament with about a week remaining in the NBA regular season. But when you lose 2 of your final 3 overtime on Sunday against the Clippers, and perhaps more inexplicably last week against the San Antonio Spurs at the buzzer, courtesy of former Warrior Harrison Barnes as a 17-point favorite, this is the result. 7-point spread in favor of the Dubs. A total now actually working its way back up ever so slightly to 228.5 yesterday at 227. But this is postseason basketball, DRS. What do we think happens tonight in San Francisco?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch it play out because we don't have the true, play-in game winner moves on, which they will, but I'm just saying, the loser doesn't go home, gets a second chance to try to get into the playoffs themselves. The interesting part about this is they opened up at 7.5 at FanDuel. Now it sits at 7 as a favorite for the Golden State Warriors. Most other outlets are at 7. Some are actually showing a 6.5, but the total also 231.5, slight buy down to 228.5. For me, it's just simple. I look at both of the rosters. Is Golden State's roster technically better in the starting lineup? I believe it is, but you still have enough firepower on the Memphis Grizzlies where nobody's going to be surprised if the Grizzlies actually win this game. They've shown a propensity to head into these games in the playoffs and the play-in round and get big wins like these. So if I'm going to say a legitimate chance to win this game outright for the Memphis Grizzlies, well, then I'll just parlay that right into I'm going to take that 7 points here and say they can play within that number, if not win this basketball game. The total, I do lend more towards an under just because it's a playoff game, but I don't really have a feel on the 228.5 over or under at this point, but it is down from the 231.5. So I'll take the Grizzlies and I'll take the 7 points tonight.
Yeah, open at 231.5. Yesterday we saw it at 227, up ever so slightly. Memphis, one of the highest over percentage teams in the NBA. Golden State exactly even. 41 games over of the 82 in the regular season, 41 games under. Donnie, it was a very tumultuous ending of the year for the Grizzlies that included the firing of Taylor Jenkins after 6 years as the Grizz head coach. One of the reasons for that, Memphis was really struggling post All-Star break, really struggling to win games and cover numbers. Donnie, 10 games for the Grizz as an underdog, entering their regular season finale against Dallas, a game they won by 35 points outright as a 2.5 point underdog. In the 10 games prior, following the All-Star break as an underdog, the Grizzlies did not cover once. They're getting 7 points tonight. You do wonder about Golden State in this play-in tournament spot. Postseason pedigree, you really back the Dubs here. Jimmy Butler understands play-in tourney positions. But the Warriors, of course, did not end the regular season with flying colors, certainly not in that last week. They get beat in OT by the Clippers to be a play-in tourney team on regular season finale Sunday. Again, the one that really cost them was losing at the buzzer to Harrison Barnes and the Spurs as a 17.5 point favorite. Where do you think that mentality is for both of our teams tonight, battling it out to be the 7th seed in the Western Conference in the Chase Center?
Yeah, I think like aspirations a little bit bigger from my end on the Golden State Warriors, specifically when they go out and get Jimmy Butler and say, okay, we're going to add you to the lineup for that playoff punch. And they were playing spectacular basketball at times, a little bit of a crumble down the stretch. So they are the better team tonight heading into it. But for my money with Memphis, I don't think it's house money's not fair. Like, this is a team that we anticipated over the past couple of years as Ja Morant to be one of the true contenders in the Western Conference, and it hasn't worked out that way, but also doing it differently. Like, Memphis used to be called the grindhouse here because they would just be like, you know what? Who wants to go down to Memphis where they're going to play great defense and it's not going to be all that fun? So more of a freewheeling scenario against a team that typically is built on defense in Golden State. The problem for me in this is trusting Golden State to win this basketball game by close to double digits. Can they do it? Absolutely. But this isn't the same team that we saw, let's just say, a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. It's like, wow, you might want to watch out for the Warriors at this point because they should not be in the playing round and slipped into the playing round because of lackluster play down the stretch for myself. So Memphis, for me, it's not even fair to call it upside. I just have a feeling like they should be able to go into Golden State and win this basketball game for me.
Yeah, I still think the Warriors get this done. I don't know if I'd lay 7 with Golden State. Don't really have a best bet for this matchup. I would keep an eye on Stephen Curry, though. If the Warriors are going to get it done, 28.5 points. The Grizzlies, not exactly the best defense in the NBA this year. Jimmy Butler, 22.5. DRS, on Sunday, it was 36 out of Steph. It was 30 out of Jimmy, despite the overtime loss to the LA Clippers. Brandon Podjemski, in his second year in the NBA, has been a sharp shooter for Golden State on the perimeter. On the other side for Memphis, watch out for the grenades tonight in the stands.
Ja
Morant, 26.5. His points prop. Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., 21.5. Those are the two guys expected to lead the way for Memphis tonight, along with Desmond Bain.
Yeah, Bain's my guy tonight because I always like secondary options. Who are you going to focus on mostly, right? Well, it's Steph Curry for the Golden State Warriors. It's going to be Ja Morant for the Memphis Grizzlies. You expect them to play well. They're going to have a lot of opportunities to score points. But just go for a 5-game snapshot here on Desmond Bain, Ben. 38 against Detroit, 19 against Charlotte in a blowout win, and a loss to Minnesota, 28 points, and a loss to Denver, 24 points. I expect Desmond Bain to be over 20 points tonight. That's the way I look at this because the ability to have, three-point shot make ability. Of course, that's what he does here. I'm just trying to get some of the statistics, which aren't showing me how many three-point shots he shot in the past couple games. There we go. 3 of 8, 6 of 10, 3 of 5, and 4 of 7 in those games. And also had a little bit of an off night against Miami at 1 of 9 from three-point range. But the game before that, 4 of 10. Give me Desmond Bain tonight, man. Look, get me into the 20s and have a good chance to cover. And even if they don't cover, why can't Desmond Bain get 20 points anyway in this game?
Completely agreed, DRS. By the way, for Zach Edey, the big man, the rookie out of Purdue, of course, the 9th overall pick, he has seen an uppage in his minutes, perhaps, or at least his production, since the dismissal of Taylor Jenkins. He has played in 8 games after Jenkins was canned. He did not play on Sunday in the regular season finale. In those 8 games, DRS, he has played more than 20 minutes in 7 of the 8. In all 7 of those games, he has had at least 11 rebounds, or 6 of the 7, he has had at least 11. He has had 9 in all 7. His rebounding prop tonight, 10.5. The over has some juice. I don't think it's a bad number on Zach Edey, the 7'4" big man for Memphis. There's been a lot of conversation, of course, the shocking dismissals of Taylor Jenkins and Michael Malone in Denver. Maybe shocking to the public, not necessarily all that stunning, perhaps, for those locker rooms or the players involved. Winner of this game becomes the 7th seed in the Western Conference. They will take on the Houston Rockets. Donnie, if it is Memphis, that would be really interesting for us as some Rockets backers. If it is Golden State, the Dubs are going to be the favorite to win that series, despite having to come through the play-in tourney, despite not having home course advantage.
Yeah, I always take a look, too, when you're taking a look in the playoffs, right? Like, you want the path of least resistance. You don't want the team that's built for it and had title runs and can certainly muster down and not get flustered. That is these Warriors at that point. You take a look at the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, if they do, win this and move on, that's a big win for them confidence-wise. But I think if you're a Rockets fan or backer, or even the coaching staff, you actually would much rather take on the Memphis Grizzlies than that pride and pedigree that you're going to get from the Golden State Warriors. So I agree with that spot here. That would be a good thing for me, for Houston, if Memphis was able to move on.
The Dubs have the 3rd best price to win the West at plus 850. Memphis at 60-1, nearly $40 back of Houston right now. Of course, that incorporates a 7-point line tonight in San Fran. To Orlando next. Eastern Conference play-in tourney time, our first of 2 on this Tuesday night. We head to Orlando. It's the Magic playing host to the Atlanta Hawks. Orlando, the 8th seed, finishing the regular season 41-41 and even 500. The 7th seed, I should say, for Orlando. The other 3 teams in the Eastern Conference play-in tourney, all sub 500. But being a play-in tourney team, very, very familiar for Trae Young and his Hawks. 4th consecutive year being in the play-in tournament. And they've been astounding in the play-in tourney. 3-1 in their previous 3 trips. Their only year, DRS, not getting to the playoffs last year when they lost their only game in that 9-10 matchup. 5-point spread in favor of the Magic at home tonight. A total that was at 216.5 yesterday, on its way up to 219. That would probably favor the Hawks, who have the 2nd highest over percentage this year at nearly 62% of their games. The Magic, 2nd highest under percentage, more than 50% of their games. Which style wins out tonight in Orlando?
It's really interesting, too, right? Because we saw that all week long, the buybacks here from the opening numbers pounding on the unders, and now you're getting that little bit of a discount going the opposite direction. 218.5 was the opening number, got as low as 216.5, now back up to 219, and even some other outlets at 219.5 right now across the board. That's interesting. But the 5, however, has stayed there all the way through with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Open at 5, still sits at 5. Some outlets are actually as high as 5.5. For me, again, it's just a trust in the home team. And you're right about it. Styles that make fights, right? The Orlando Magic, they've been known to be, look, we'll play a slugfest here. We'll grind it out. We'll play good defense. We won't get that up-tempo style when that's what the Atlanta Hawks want to do. They don't play great defense here. They want to get out and run. And also, outside of you taking a look at Trae's been in big environments before, Madison Square Garden cheering his name, knocking out the New York Knicks. I mean, he's had some of those, big-time fights here in the NBA. You take a look at the Orlando Magic. We're waiting for them, right? We're waiting for that playoff to say, you know what? It's a good young team here, or they're ready to make the next step. And the next step starts with playoff victories, which include the one that they're going to get tonight. So I agree at some outlets moving to 5.5 off of the 5 at the FanDuel Sportsbook. I think the Orlando Magic win, but also now with that buyback going higher on the total, I'll still up to 219. I like it better, obviously, than 217 or 216.5. I think we get a win by the Magic and the game stays under, because I do think, as you said, the Magic will dictate pace in this game, not the Hawks, Ben.
No doubt about it, DRS. It is correlated. Atlanta needed to win down the final week of the regular season to hold off the surging Chicago Bulls from not becoming the 8th seed, playing in the 7-8 matchup. So Atlanta did. They won their final 3, including the regular season finale against Orlando. So if you're looking at that, well, the Hawks have their number. Not necessarily. The last time these two teams played at full strength, now about a week ago. Exactly a week ago, in Paolo Banchero, a 33-point performance as the Magic won by 7, covering as a short favorite in Orlando, 119-112. Now that pace up there, but if the Magic are to win tonight, you would expect them to control tempo. For me, DRS, I think Orlando is the right side. The Magic were a few games below 500, 32 and 38 in the final 2.5 weeks or so of this NBA regular season. To get back to 500, to make sure they could solidify home floor advantage in a play-in tournament game, they had to win. They won 10 of their last 13. So I really do believe in this Magic side. I think Orlando wins tonight, and I think Orlando covers. Now, you have Trae Young. You have the familiarity for the Hawks in these play-in tourney spots, understanding that your season is at stake. Of course, loser of tonight's game, both here in Orlando and in San Francisco, will host the winner of the 9-10 matchup on Thursday to become the 8th seed in the playoff standings in either conference. I just think Orlando's playing better basketball in this matchup. I'm going to trust in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner tonight to get the job done for the Magic.
Yeah, I think it makes some sense. I do. I just think they have a better team overall. Obviously, they're a higher-seeded team, and they're at home. And if you think they could win the game, you're not going to say, well, I don't think they can cover the 5 points here. It's pretty much paint by numbers at that point with the correlation. They should be able to get the job done. But it'll be interesting because the one thing we do know is, Trae Young has that propensity to say, this is a big game. I'm going to take control of this. Logo threes, 36 points, 10-plus assists at that point to just carry his team. We've seen that before, but I just don't know if the starting cast around him is as good as what I feel the Orlando Magic has. So I'm with you in this point. I think Orlando wins this game and moves on and sort of takes their game to the next level where it's all about, playoff wins and exceeding expectations, which was a good season for the Magic making the playoffs. Now we want more. We want wins to be associated with a good season, and I think that starts to happen tonight for the Magic.
That points prop looks very lofty for Paolo Banchero, the number 1 overall pick, of course, in the NBA draft back in 2022, and the rookie of the year the following season in the association in 2022-23. He is becoming one of the best scorers in all of the NBA, DRS, and 30-plus for Banchero 7 times in his final 11 games of this regular season. That's going to be a big reason that Orlando wins tonight. For Paolo Banchero, maybe not necessarily needing to get over that number, but at least getting around his season average of 26 points per game. Franz Wagner has been very, very good as well. The Magic were the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs a season ago. Didn't do much in their opening round matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now they're trying to become the 7 seed. Of course, you win tonight, a celebration, but then you get ready for a playoff series beginning on Sunday against the reigning NBA champs. That's the Boston Celtics, the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference.
By the way, did they pop bottles tonight? Because we always get a kick out of baseball and hey, we're moving on at this point here at this. But the NBA teams, though, they don't pop bottles after a series win, though. You know what I mean?
Oh. You don't think the Timberwolves were popping a few bottles after they knocked off the Clippers
Pat Bev
in a play-in tournament a few years ago? Pat Bev jumping on the stanchion in the scorer's table? Now, come on.
He was going.
I think
Pat Bev was going.
I don't know if they pop bottles necessarily. Why not?
I'm telling you right now.
They're celebrating.
You know what I would get a kick out of? If the Golden State Warriors, who are used to championships, bust out the champagne after a play-in victory over Memphis, now that would get my attention. You know what? These guys do love this sport.
A couple of victory cigars for Draymond in the locker room. Yeah, now that would be
a podcast
something.
right
DRS,
away.
Are you going to preview all 15 games on the money line
for
MLB today?
All of them, yeah. All of them.
Proud of you.
Money line. Solo mission in the space. No Blue Origin. Just me. Just me.
I like that. More of the early line up next.